Hey, what's up, my friend? Today, we are going to talk about how to create a strong family. What does that even mean, and what does that entail? I'm joined by Mell Hashey, who, with her husband Joe, has created a really important mission of helping parents raise confident, independent, and resilient children in a strong family environment. They call it the Strong Family Project, and she's going to go over the 7 elements to establishing a strong family and how we actually put each element into practice. She's been married for 17 years and is a mom to 3 boys, 5 years old, 11 years old, and 13 years old. So she's kind of in lots of different stages right now. So whether you have little ones or whether you're going through the teenage years, or perhaps a bit of both, you'll find a lot of application for your life, and this is going to be an episode you'll want to go back to over and over again. All right, friends, so let's get into it. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome Mell Hashey. So we are going to get into each of those 7 elements. Mell's going to share each one briefly. But before we do, let's establish a little more context, a little more understanding. When we hear strong family, that can be interpreted in a number of different ways. What does it mean to you and your family?
It's interesting you ask because we do own gyms and we do work out together, but it's really not about physical strength, even though I think that's an important component into health. It's really about being a strong family unit, having strong relationships within the family. So it's about the strength of the unit itself, not like physical gym strength, so to speak. Yeah. So that's really where we came from. We struggled with what to call it, honestly. But because we have like the physical fitness background, it felt natural to us to use that word. And honestly, I think it's a very strong word, if that makes, just to use the same word. I think it's exciting. Like, I want to be a strong family. Like, you could say, I want to be a great family, or I want to be a positive family, but strong is just deeper somehow.
Yes, I completely agree with that. To me, it's it reminds me of something that can't be shaken, like your brick foundation. That's strong, whether you're going through a valley or a high season, or maybe siblings fighting together, husband and wife fighting together. You still have that strong family foundation that will carry you through it. So that's what I see in my mind when I think here's a strong family.
I love that. And what that reminds me of, so we are a Christian family, and I love that verse in the Bible about like you need to build your home on stone, not on sand. And that's really also a piece of it.
Yeah, that's so one of my favorite verses as well. I think it's in Matthew, probably sprinkled throughout the Bible. But yes, I love that too. So Mell, let's get into the 7 elements to establishing a strong family, starting with picking family core values. What does that look like?
So this really is the foundation for the entire path. So it's what allows you to figure out what is your family about, what are you going to fight to stand for, and then it's a great filter for any decisions that you have to make. So just quickly, the process that we went through, and Joe took this from business, because businesses have mission statements and core values, and I think those businesses that tend to actually utilize those in day-to-day decision making tend to be more successful. So he and I separately, over a matter of a week or two, wrote down any kind of value that we find important. And it can range from spirituality to love of reading, to being adventurous, or anything like that. And then we came together and went through the list. And our goal was to make it short. So 3 to 7 core values. And every single thing we wrote down was important, but you can't stand for like 100 things. Like you really have to be able to whittle it down. And what's memorable is portable. So I really wanted it to be something that I could go out somewhere and someone could say, hey, what are your core values? And I could list them versus like, well, I don't remember because we have like 20, you know what I mean? So I want the kids to be able to remember them. And once we whittled it down, and that took a lot of deep discussion, which brought us closer, because it really is a matter of like, we're 2 individuals, but we have this family unit. And what are we about? What do we have in common that we're going to stand for together? So we came up with be grateful. So it's really important to have gratitude, be genuine, be adventurous, which is like getting outside of your comfort zone, wanting to be together, not just like living under the same roof, but actually being together, personal accountability and personal responsibility. And that's ours. But the cool thing about this is that every family will have unique core values.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually wrote them down, and we have them like up on the wall. We had them on the table for months and months and months until the kids learned them. It's not just something like, oh, that was fun, and then you just kind of fade into the background.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. How do you involve your kids in that? Like, did you say, okay, we're going to talk about this. What do you think our core values should be? Especially when you have really young ones. If your youngest one is 5, he must have been, what, 2 or 3? Like, how do you involve all the kids and make sure that, hey, we're going to do this together, get on board?
Yes, very good question. I think it really depends on the ages of the kids. So when we created ours, our kids were probably about 2 and 4. We only had 2 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And they really wouldn't have been able to understand what we were doing. So after we came up with the concept, and I had typed them up like onto a little bookmark, because I wanted it to be able to like be around the house, and we would discuss it at dinner every night. We shared it with the kids and started to just make choices that aligned with those values. And even at our family meeting, which we'll talk about later, we started out by saying, what's a way you've embodied a core value this week? So it's always top of mind. Now, if you have older kids, like if let's say you're doing this when you have a teenager, I think it's amazing to include them in the process. So like earlier I mentioned, my husband and I made our lists. Have the kids make a list, or have a family meeting where you kind of like throw around ideas so that they have more buy-in. Because certainly it's tougher as kids get older.
Yeah.
And also, it's kind of set in stone for us now. We've been living with these values for a long time, but if you're new to it, try them on for size for a month. And after a month, like get together as a family and go through and say, is this really what we're about? Maybe we can switch something. So there is flexibility there. But I think the older the kids are, you can get creative with involving them. Even if you have little ones, you have like a poster of them. They can color the poster. So they're a piece of the creation of this process. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. Second piece is a productive morning routine, which I think just sets up the day effectively, right? So what does that look like?
Sure. So the goal of this, the mindset we have, is that we want our kids to wake up with purpose. We don't want them to just roll out of bed and groan, which they still do. But they wake up and they have certain things that they need to accomplish. So in our family, they do a quick little 5-minute workout. Now, is that going to necessarily make them super strong? No. But we want them to start that habit. And getting the blood flowing first thing in the morning wakes you up. For sure.
Yes.
And then they all come into the kitchen and they all have a contribution. So we use the word contribution, not chore. I think chores are just historically so negative.
Yeah.
And we want each of the kids and each of the people in the family to feel like you bring value, you contribute. And they do things like unstack the dishwasher or peel the bananas for the morning milkshake or whatever the case may be, but they contribute. And now that I think it's really important to use that word contribute.
Yes.
And then after that, they do a morning journal. They write down a couple things they're thankful for, a couple goals for the day. And when they complete all of that, then they can use like a tech time before school if time allows. But it's like this really interesting like process in the kitchen where we're all kind of on top of each other, but everyone's getting their job done. Everyone's contributing because they understand if they don't do those things, like someone has to do them. Like, I have to do everything. And that's not really how a family system works.
Right. Yeah. And I think everyone ends up having a sense of fulfillment and achievement in the morning. It's not just at the end of the day. Right.
Yes, that's a great point. You start out with some wins already. And even with little ones, so my 5-year-old, his job is simply to open the freezer for the older one who's putting the new ice trays in it so they don't spill,
how
right?
nice.
It's just like a little something that he can do so he feels like he's part of it.
Yes, yes. Third, family meetings. Oh man, this one brings me back to my childhood because you just hear family meeting and you're like, oh no.
Exactly.
But what you say here is family meetings that kids love. So what is that?
And our kids really do. And they call us out if we happen to miss one. So like you mentioned, family meetings historically are just like, uh-oh, this means something bad is happening, right? And they're kind of
like dread.
Like exactly. Like, hey, kids, we're moving. So that's a great question, because what we do is, first of all, they have to be consistent. So we've created this situation where we try to have dinner as often as we can together, and Saturday is just our most consistent dinner. So we do it during dinner on Saturday. So it's not like it's on top of that. It's called habit stacking. Like, we already eat together, so we might as well just tack this on and do it at the same time. And we kick it off by my husband simply saying everyone's going to share a way they embodied a core value. So let's say one of the kids did an extra hike that week. We have like a trail behind the house. They could say, "Oh, I was adventurous this week because I chose to do this hike." But we all share something that we did to embody a value. Or you switch it up and you say, "I'd like you to point out something somebody else in the family did that week," so that we notice each other and what we're doing. Like, "Hey, Mom, I noticed you tried a new recipe. Were you trying to be adventurous and not give us the same food over and over?" So you create those relationships by showing, almost complimenting each other.
Mm.
And the next step is, and just if you have little ones, what we used to do is we had them draw a picture of something that they did. Or
Oh, love
our
that.
5-year-old, yeah, when we started this, he was, very, very little. We would just have him in the room or coloring or playing with something. So he's still a part of what's happening.
Yeah.
And then we move on to discussion topics. So this is kind of neat because anybody can bring up a topic. It can be like the schedule for the week or an issue that's come up, like, "Hey, you guys are using your tech time too much," or, "I don't see that you're reading 15 minutes a day like we discussed." And really, my husband and I will set the expectation. So success looks like you reading 15 minutes a day. How can we get you there? And the
Mm.
kids, 95% of the time, come up with a solution. So they bring value, they're contributing, they're being a part of like a highly organized or a high functioning meeting because they're actually showing up and saying what they want to do. It's not just like mom and dad are telling you what to do. It's not at all like that. And honestly, I almost all the time they come up with the solution. So that's why the discussion topics are really kind of fun, because the kids feel like, yeah, I get to talk about what I want to, and then I get to come up with I get to problem solve. That's an important skill for life, to be able to
Yeah.
problem solve.
Yeah, which I think is such a good segue into the next value, which is confidence building goal setting systems. 'Cause by having them think of solutions on their own, they're building that confidence, right? So, what else
Yes.
goes into that step?
Into the goal step.
Mm-hmm.
So every year we sit down and we create like a family, or individually we draw a picture of what we want to accomplish that year. And it can be like, I want to start to read more books. I want to lose some weight. Or for kids, like, it might be something like a project they want to complete or something they want to learn about. And we set up that goal for the year, but we understand, even when adults do this in like January, right? You have like a resolution.
Yeah.
Oftentimes you just lose track after a while. So at our family meeting, after the discussion topic part, we actually set the goal for that week. So what can you do this week for 7 days that'll get you closer to the goal? Maybe it's, do 10 push-ups a day. My son is working on his first football season, so he works on his football stance for 5 minutes a day. It's just something little that pushes you closer to that goal. So it's not just like this far off dream of something you hope will happen. It's like actionable right now. And we keep each other accountable at dinner too. Did everybody do their commitment today? So it's like a nice reminder to get it done. There's still a few hours in the day to get that done.
Yes. All right, my friend, I'm taking a quick pause here because I know we've covered a lot so far. So I just want to go over the first 4 principles that Mell has shared so far. So first, picking family core values. Number 2, productive morning routines. Number 3, family meetings that kids love. And number 4, confidence building goal setting systems. All right, let's get back into the conversation. Yeah, so the next one is family dinner plan and conversation topics. I think you already gave a little bit of color into the conversation topics that are had. Family dinner plan. Are you talking about food here, or what do you mean?
It's really, family dinner is really just having a meal together. So for us as a family, when we used to live in New York, my husband was always at work. We never ate dinner together. So when
Mhm.
we moved, we made that a priority, and we all look forward to it. And we, just learn how to wait for everybody. We don't start eating until everybody's sitting down. And no matter what's happened in your day, whether you were at school or at work or whatever the case may be, there's an expectation that we can be together for these 20 to 30 minutes or whatever it
Mhm.
might be.
Mhm.
So it's just time
Yeah.
together. And it's another opportunity to work on those family core values. So we go around and share something we're thankful for from the day. Our littlest actually gets to choose the order of who shares what they're thankful for. So that's his way to
That's fun.
contribute.
Mhm.
And it's just another way to kind of rehash what the values are. Because honestly, I grew up where we would watch the news during dinner. Like
Mhm.
that's what it was, that there wasn't time to come together and chat and just be together, even if it's kind of quiet, just
Mhm.
time together. So that one is kind of simple, but I think it's so important to try to have those times together at the table.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I know it can be really hard. Sometimes it's really hard for me because I need to debrief after cooking a big meal or from my work day. I need a
Yeah.
debrief to just sit and eat just myself sometimes. So
Right.
I think that can be hard. But, on the flip side, when we are able to have everyone at the table and, hey, how was your day? What was the favorite thing that happened for you? I mean, such amazing things come out of their mouths. And you
Yeah.
learn so much about who they are too. I mean, especially with the kids going back to school and making new friends, being in brand new classes. I'm learning a lot about, my daughter and my son who are in school, and my little one still in the same class as he was last year. But, it's there's a lot to be learned for everyone.
Yeah. And I think someone might say, well, there's no way we could have dinner every night together. And that's not really the
Mm-hmm.
point. The point is to
Yeah.
be intentional and find time. Maybe it's like when I grew up, Saturday morning was pancake morning. So we'd make pancakes together. It's just finding time together uninterrupted to be together and learn those things. Because otherwise, you're not going to learn those things about what's happening in your kid's day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Number 6, evening debrief for kids to be heard. I love this one.
Yeah, me too. This one kind of organically came up. So I put my 5-year-old to bed, and then I go into the other room where my 11 and 13-year-old are. And I just happened to notice that this was the time that they would bring up those sensitive topics from the
Mhm.
day
Yeah.
when some kid was mean to them or something happened at recess. And I thought to
Mhm.
myself, if I don't make this a priority and spend this time with them, because at that time, it's like 9 o'clock and all I want to do
Mhm.
is go to bed. The
Yeah,
day
I
is
know.
done. It's so hard to want to sit there and just be present for them at that moment. But there's actually this thing. I used to be a therapist for 5 years, and it's called the doorknob conversation. So you talk to them for 45 minutes, and just as they're about to leave, that's when they bring up like the deep thing that should have been
Mhm.
brought up like 40 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So the evening debrief really is an intentional decision to spend the extra time with your kids at bedtime because they might need you as just a shoulder to cry on, as someone to
Mhm.
help them problem solve. And oftentimes I'll ask my kids, I'll say, you're sharing this problem with me. Do you need to just share the problem, or do you actually want some help solving that problem? Because sometimes you just
Mhm.
need to complain,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And as parents, we just want to like jump in and solve it.
Yeah.
Well, like just tell the kid this or just do that or whatever. But sometimes they just need to be heard. Sometimes they just need you to sit there and listen and just acknowledge and validate their feelings. And that's really what that time is for. And it's really special. And yes, sometimes I come upstairs at 9:45 because it was a long conversation, but if you put it off to the next day, they might not bring it up to you. And when they truly are going through something difficult, they might not come to you because you haven't made the time previously for them.
Really, really good point. And then the last one, home relationships to be mindful of. What does that entail?
Sure. So when you think of family, we are a unit as a family, but within that family, there are so many relationships. There's each person as an individual.
Yeah.
There's the couple, the mom and dad. There's the kids as a group. Like I have 3 boys, so the way they are together as three versus like twosomes, like my
Yeah.
oldest with my youngest, it's all different.
Very different.
And then also each parent with each child. So the
Mhm.
way I am with my oldest is different than how he is with my husband. So we just recognize that having this kind of mindset and like always having almost like a pulse on how things are going within those relationships. That's kind of my role in the family. I'm good. Maybe it's my therapist background, but I'm kind of good at noticing when one of the relationships is suffering. So I'll notice at dinner that one of my kids seems kind of more sullen than usual. I make a note to myself, like maybe I should take a walk with him after dinner and kind of see what's up. Or if there's two siblings are bickering more recently, maybe there's something that needs to be kind of figured out there. So it's just having your mind open to the fact that there's a lot of relationships within the family. And for the adults too, there's times my husband's overwhelmed with work and he'll say to me, like, I need a few minutes after dinner by myself to kind of recoup. So he's got to take care of himself too. So just being aware that there's all kinds of dynamics within a family. It's not just the family as a big unit.
Yeah. Yeah. I think these 7 elements are so amazing, and it's irrefutable that they will create that strong family as individuals, but then as that family unit, as you said. I love that it weaves so much open communication between, relationships across the entire family. I just think this is so amazing. And the fact that you're constantly talking about it, because kids, even parents, adults, can be super forgetful sometimes, but as you're constantly talking about it, it becomes second nature. The way you act or the way you do things or the way you even think about things, approach things, I think all will tie back to, the core family values that you've created because it's been so intertwined into your daily lives. That's what I love about it.
It's just become who we are now, because we've been just practicing it for so long. And really, I see it when I'm raising kids, they're going to be adults someday. And I think sometimes as moms, I don't want to think about that. Like I tell my 5-year-old,
scary.
Can't you just stay little? And he's like, my body does what my body does. And it's just cute. But I try to keep that in mind. He really is. Like for my 13-year-old, 5 years from now, he'll be 18. And you don't just wake up one day. I hate thinking about that, but you don't just wake up one day and know how to be an adult and just know how to problem solve. So we're almost training them to become successful adults.
Yes.
That's really our purpose with all these things. And they might, hopefully they'll get married someday and they'll have their own kids. And I would love for them to create their own set of core values. But they'll only do that if I show them an example now.
Yep, definitely. That is the end of part 1 of my conversation with Mell. And there was so much good stuff there. There's so much we can apply to our family lives. And so that's why I'm breaking up the conversation into 2 parts. I want to give you a chance to really soak in all of the wisdom Mell shared today and maybe start, figuring out and thinking about how to apply it to your own family. You can get a copy of those 7 elements over at strongfamilyproject.com. Next week, Mell is going to be back on to talk to us as moms. What are her best tips on how to be a fully present and intentional mom? Because applying those 7 elements does require a lot of presence. It does require a lot of intentionality. So what can we do as moms to be that for our families? And when we can't be that, we are way too overstimulated, we just need a break. Okay, what do we do then? And how do we get over those feelings of mom guilt that will inevitably show up? So follow Mom Scribe Coffee on your podcast app. And if you know anyone who also is desiring to establish that strong family, share this episode with them through your podcast app, or you can send them to momscribecoffee.com. All right, that's a wrap for today. Join me again next week for a cup of coffee with a side of faith, wisdom, and hope.